All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott, formerly of Rankin Technical College. And as you can see, here is the address to my YouTube channel. And that YouTube channel is JPS-Jeff Teaches Programming. Right now, there is only one playlist in there, and that's Jeff Teaches Programming-Python. We've gone over many facets of the Python language, including, but not limited to, talking about the keywords, going over the basic data structures, those being lists, dictionaries, tuples, and sets, going through object orientation. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about files. All right. And basically, when you're working with files, there's two kinds. There's binary files and there's text files. Text files are files you can read with any editor. So for instance, if I come in here and go into Notepad and just save this, this is a text file. All right. And if I go and say file, save as, you'll notice it's going to want to save it as a file of .txt. All right. On the other hand, if I go in and grab a file that's not a text file, all right. So for instance, if I were to come in, let's just say in here and see if I can find something, probably rue the fact that I'm doing this, but so if I come in here and let's see, I'll go in here into articles, and if I go to open this up, you'll notice it wants to open it up, but it doesn't want to open it up in as a text file. So why do you care? I mean, why should you care? All right, so let's just look at this file, and is there an open with? So if I do an open with, and I come in here, and I try to open it up, let's see if I can find something. Choose another app. I don't know if it'll even show it in here, more apps. If I were to try to bring this up in Notepad, for example, and click OK, it's either not going to open or it's going to look like garbage, because non-text files, if you try to open them in a regular text file editor like Notepad, you're going to have nothing but problems. And you can see it spinning around, and it says Notepad's not responding. It doesn't know how to do it. Let's just close it. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create 3 different programs. I've already come in here and I have created under my source files a folder called Python files. There's nothing in it. All right. Also, I have gone out and on, where are you? I've created out here a new GitHub repository under my JP Scott Rankin called Python Files. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to open Git Bash here. And there isn't anything in here yet. You know that already if you've been looking. All right, so I'm going to come in here and just say git init. All right, which gives me the empty, basically, repository. I'm going to paste this in, and I'm going to say git remote -v. And it says right now it's going to be looking for this particular GitHub repository under JP Scott Rankin Python files.git. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create 3 different projects underneath here. 2 of them are going to basically be the same project, but one will be object oriented and one will not. And then after I get done with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our bank program that we did object oriented and try to see if we can redo that one using files. All right, so this first one here, this is going to work with random numbers. All right, and it's not going to be an object-oriented program. So let's create a new folder in here, and we're going to call this random file non-oop. And since we've got the other ones in here, let's just quickly do the other ones too. Create another folder that we'll call random file oop. And we'll have one last one that we will call bank file oop. All right, those are the three that we're going to be working with. And let's start with the random file non-oop. So I'm going to open this up in code. There's no files in here because we haven't created it yet. All right, that should make sense. We haven't done anything in here yet. All right, now we can go and this isn't going to be a real big program. All right, not that small either, but it's not going to be that big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw everything into one file. All right, and I'm going to call this random01.py. All right, so I'm going to put everything in here, and I've already written it, as you'd probably guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy over my comments so we can go over them. Okay. All right. So create a non-object oriented Python console program that does the following. All right. First thing we want to do is we want to check, and these files won't exist, but every time we run the program, we're going to create three files: 0.txt, positive.txt, and negative.txt. 0.text, well, let me just mention again, as it says here, we're going to generate 25 random numbers between 0 and 100 and save those numbers to a file. But as we save them, all right, we're going to save them in a different way. As it says here, we'll let the user, all right, we'll let the user read a text file, and when they do, we'll let them do the following. All right. So three things are going to possibly happen here. Either a positive number will be generated, or a negative number will be generated, or 0 will be generated. So if 0 is generated, we want to create a Python print statement that says 0 is not positive or negative, and add 1 to a counter that we call 0 counter. All right, or something like that. If the number is not 0, modulo, meaning divide the number by 2 and grab the remainder. If the remainder is 0, it's a positive number, so we'll create a Python print statement that says the number is positive and add 1 to a positive counter. If the remainder is not 0, that means the remainder is 1, so it's and when I said positive and negative, I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. That should be odd or even. So let's try that again. Odd or even. All right. So if the number modulate by 2, so we want to say here the number is even, and we'll add 1 to an even counter. If the remainder is not 0, meaning it's 1, we'll say the number is odd, and we'll add 1 to an odd counter. All right, then we'll write out the number basically we're going to fill these up. So this is even, odd. How I got this before that, but I did. All right, we're going to change the name of these things. So instead of calling this positive.txt, we'll call this evens.txt. Instead of calling it, so this will be even numbers, and this will be odd numbers. And that will be to odds.txt. All right, and if the part number is odd or even, write the number out to that file as well. All right, we're getting there. At the end of the program, read and then write out the contents of the file 0.txt, evens.txt, and odds.txt. If no zeros were generated, we want to have some kind of a message in the 0.txt file that says that. Okay, that's it. Now we want to import a random number or create a random number, and there's many ways that you can do this. I've already gone through a few of them in earlier examples, but I'm just going to import random here. All right. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to generate our random numbers. Now, there's different ways of doing this, but I want to show you what I'm going to do because it's going to be very small. All right. It's only going to be 2 lines, but I want to show you what I did and why I did it. So I'm going to define here, generate random numbers. All right. I'm going to have a count here, and that's how many I want to generate. And I'm going to have, we'll call it L bound and U bound. In fact, let's do it like this. And L bound is the lower bound. That's going to be 0. And U bound is the upper bound, and that's going to be 100. So we will return random dot randint. All right. And L bound, U bound, oops. For underscore in range count. Now, what does all that mean? I mean, it looks like a bunch of garbage. Basically, what we're saying is we're going to pass in here is we want 25 numbers between 0 and 100. So return, for each one of those, return a random number that's within this range. All right? Okay, after we generate the random numbers, we want to save. We need to give the file a name. And this will be the actual numbers that we're going to be saving in there. All right. Now, when you work with files, there's many different ways you can do this. One of the things that you use quite often is something that's called a with statement. And it just makes it a little easier to refer to things. So I'm going to say with open file name. We want to open it up with write permission. We're going to say as, and we can put anything we want here. This is what we're going to refer to it as. We'll just call it F for file. All right, so for number in numbers, F.write number. And after we write it, we'll do a \n. So each number will be on its own line. All right, so let's quickly just put in a couple comments here. So this method will generate 25, which is count, random numbers between 0, which is L bound, and 100, which is U bound. All right. This method will save the generated 25 random numbers to a file. Okay? I could run it right now, but it's not doing anything yet, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Why? Because we've got them saved, but now we want to do some processing. So this method will process the random number file. Okay? And we'll call it process numbers. We'll have to give it a file name. Now we're going to have counts in here. So we'll have a 0 count that we're going to set equal to 0. We'll have an even count, which we'll set equal to 0. And we'll have an odds count, which we'll set equal to 0. So as you'd guess, this will set the count, each counter to 0. All right. Now, we want to open the file with the 25 random numbers in read mode. Let's move this over to a couple lines. There we go. So we want to open this in a read mode. Okay. So again, R for read. So we're reading every single line that's in that file. We shouldn't have to do the strip, but in case there's any blanks in there, they'll be removed. All right, next, we will open the 0.text, evens.txt, and odds.txt files in write mode. So with open, and we'll say this first one will be 0.text. Again, we're opening it up in write mode. As, we can call it whatever we want. Let's just call it 0 file. And next, we will open evens, spell open right, evens.text, and again we will open that up in write mode, and we will open that up as evens file. I think I'm missing a comma there, and that's probably why I'm getting that error. There we go. Finally, we will open the file odds.txt. Again, just like before, we will where is my cursor? There it is. Just like before, we will open this up in write mode, and this will be opened up as odds file. All right, so that's everything. They're gray right now because I'm not using this to do anything. All right, so what do we want to do here? Well, one thing to mention, because I didn't do this first, all right, one thing that we probably want to do is, I'll come up here and we will remove the zero.txt, evens.txt, and odds.txt files if they currently exist. This will guarantee that each file will contain only the numbers from the current program run. Okay? All right. Now there's different ways that you can do that. All right. So I'm going to call this def remove in fact, I should remove it from everything. Let's see. We're going to end up creating a file called random numbers here. So I also want to remove that. So I want to remove this. And random numbers dot text files if they currently exist. And as it says right there, this will guarantee that each file will contain only the numbers from the current program run, which is what I'd want. All right, so I'll call this remove existing files. Okay? Like that. Now I'm getting an error because there's no code there. I went online and looked at this to try to find out the best way of doing it, and there's different ways of doing it. So here's the Python file methods. We'll look at those in just a bit. All right. But when you look on here, close, return, flush, didn't find anything that I really wanted in here to use. So I went out and looked some more. And of course, I think I removed it. So there you go, deleting file. And I grabbed this. Okay. And I'm going to try something here because I'm doing this literally. This I did not do in my copy of the program, just so you know. Okay. So I want to come in here, and the first thing I want to do is I want to do another import. I want to import OS, which is going to give me some operating system functionality. All right. So this will remove these files. Yeah, that's all good and nice. Now, again, I'm going to have to change some of this, so don't worry about it. I'm going to pass into this a file name. So os.path.exists file name Okay, so we're going to pass in a file name, and if that exists, we want to remove it. So let's see, and print oh, it doesn't like something here, so let's see. That'll be fixed by typing in file name. All right, so how did they do that here? Oh, I don't have an if there. If this exists, remove it, and print we'll use an F string in here. The file name has been removed. Otherwise, we'll print cannot delete. Let's make it an F string. Cannot delete file file name as it does not exist. There. That should work. Should. Now we want to remove each one of these. So let's come in here and let's make a main. And what I'm about to do, I'm sure there's plenty of better ways of doing it, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call remove existing. Let's change this to remove existing file instead of remove existing files. So we'll call remove existing file and we'll pass it random numbers dot txt. Is that how they did it here? So there's different ways of doing it. There is an unlink, etc. So there's different ways this can be done. All right, but like I said, I'm trying to do it this way. So we've got random numbers.text. We've got 0.text. We've got evens.text. And we've got odds.text. All right, so that's the first thing we're going to try to do. Now, the first time we run the program, those files will not exist. So we should get the error message that says cannot delete that file name because it does not exist. That's okay. All right. So we want to come in here and we want to remove these. Okay, that's a start. Sorry. Turn that off. There you go. All right, so the first thing we want to do is come in here and remove these. Then we want to generate the random numbers. Okay. And when we generate those, we want this to be 25, we want this to be 0, and we want this to be 100. All right, so that should generate the numbers for us. And then we want to save the random numbers to a file. Okay. So when we do this, we're going to generate these. That's fine. But we got to give it a name. So we'll just call this random numbers, because this is going to be 25 random numbers. Okay. After we do that, we're going to want to save it to the file. So have we gotten to that point yet? Save random numbers to file. I got to stop doing this where I rewrite programs on the fly, but I kind of like doing it that way. So this, we're going to call this random numbers.text. And what are we setting in there? What numbers? Well, random numbers. All right. All right, so let's just write some comments in here. Remove file random numbers.txt if it currently exists. Okay. Remove file zero.text if it currently exists. Remove file evens.text if it currently exists. Remove file odds.text if it currently exists. Generate 25 new random numbers between between 0 and 100. All right. Save the 25 generated random numbers to a text file called random numbers.text. Okay. All right. So I'm still in here. I'm still in main. Okay. So main is going to call this remove, and the first time it's going to pass it random numbers.text, then 0.text, then evens.text, then odds.text. First time we run the program, the file shouldn't exist. So we should get 4 cannot delete messages. That's okay. Then we will come in here and actually generate the random numbers. This is going to return 25 random numbers between 0 and 100. Then we call this that says we want to save the files. All right, we gave it the name random numbers.text, and we want to write to that file. All right, now we're going to come in and process the numbers. All right. We want to save the files this process thing that we do in here, this process right here. Basically, we want to save it to, we need the counts in there. So we need 0 count, we need even count, we need odd count. All right, so in main, one thing that's kind of cool that you can do in this language, so we're going to come in here and we're going to call process numbers, passing in the file random numbers.txt. All right. As we process this file, update zero count or evens count or odds count for each number in the file, in the random numbers.txt file. All right. So to do that, we're going to come in here, and I don't know how that got moved over. These are all, look at that. Son of a gun. Oh, we're still in main. No, that's good. Yeah, that's right. So we're in here, and we're going to say zero count. That's okay. We'll fix this in a minute. Evens count, odds count, equal process numbers, and we have to give it the name of the file we're passing in again, which is random numbers.txt. All right. Now, part of the problem we have here is we're defining those down here inside of process numbers. All right. That's where we're defining those. Let's see. So process numbers. Not sure. I'm going to leave this. It's going to be an error right now, but we'll fix this later. All right. So we're doing that. Finally, we will want to display the contents of zero.txt, evens.txt, and odds.txt files. All right. And we're going to call something we haven't written yet. So we'll call display file contents. And we will put in here basically zero.txt, evens.txt, and odds.txt. All right, now we'll fix this in a minute. All right, but we've got a lot of this done already. So we've got the remove done, and then we generate the numbers, and then we save that to a file, and now we're in the middle of processing here. All right, so that's what we want to do next here. All right, so after I've come in here and done all this, I want to still be within my with statement. So I'm going to say for number in numbers, all right, if the number is equal to 0, all right, we want to print 0. Well, what did we say we're going to print? How's that? Um, 0 is not odd or even. All right. We also want to add 1 to our 0 count. All right. Otherwise, if the number modulo 2, so this is 0 check. Okay. This will be even number check. Okay, so if that's the case, we want to print. Again, I'm just going to grab everything that I had up above here. The number is even. All right, after we print that the number is even, we want to write it to the file. Oops. All right. And we want to add 1 to our count. So that was positive. Was it a positive count? No, I'm supposed to. Why do I keep doing that? That's evens count plus equal 1. All right, so let's put some comments in here. So if the number is 0, you know, and again, this is pretty obvious probably, but I'm going to increment the 0 counter. All right, if this is the case, it's even. So I want to write the number out to evens.text. And then I want to increment the evens. Is it even count? It's right below that. Evens counter. All right, and if it's not one of those, it's got to be odd. All right, let me move all this over. And it's not going to be identical, of course, but we're going to be using a lot of this, so. We'll just change this from elif to else. All right. And this is going to be our odd number check. All right, otherwise print the number is odd. write the number out to odds.text. And increment the odds counter. All right, so that's all done. Now, almost done with this routine. Okay, almost done with it. But now I want to get out of this for loop. I want to be out of the for loop. So I want to be right there. All right. And I'm going to say here, since I've gone through the whole thing, now I can print out final totals. So if zero count is greater than 0, what does that mean? Generated 1 or greater zeros. So if that's the case, 0 file dot write total zeros. Let's put that into an F string. And we'll put in here 0 count. And let's be nice, put a \n in there. If that isn't the case, no zeros generated. All right, so I'm going to just come in here, and one time I'm going to put 0 file dot write no zeros were generated. Okay, now I've got to do similar types of things for the odds and evens, except there's just, you know, I guess it'd be possible that we could have 25 odd numbers or 25 even numbers. So if, in fact, let's just copy this. All right, we'll say here, if evens count is greater than 0, so if that's the case, generated 1 or greater even numbers, then to even file dot write, is that evens file? There we go. Total evens, and that's going to be evens count. Otherwise, no even numbers were generated. All right, let's grab this. Come down here. Now we got to do it for odds. So we generated 1 or more odd numbers. And this would be no odd numbers. And we want to make sure we're writing to the right file. There. And I think we're sitting pretty good here. All right. Now, the only thing we have to do is, if you look in here, all right, open, did this, did this, did this. So we came in here into main, someplace into main, there we are, and we've done all this. All right, now I think I'm going to have a problem here with zero count, even count, and odd count. So I'm going to come up here and make those global. So I'm going to declare counters, the counters as global variables. So I'm going to say zero count equals 0, evens count equals 0, odds count equals 0. All right. Now to use those in here, if you remember, call process numbers. Okay, that should be okay. So this is still inside of main. So we've removed all those files. I like doing this at the beginning. I don't know if you're supposed to always or not, but I'm going to say global 0.text. I'm sorry. 0 count, evens count, odds count. All right, that should get rid there. Now I shouldn't have, there we go. Those errors are gone. So all that's left is to write this display file content. Where am I for time? Doing okay. So I've got this display file contents. Okay. And I'm passing in all three of these file names, which is okay, but that's display file file contents. Okay. So this is call display file contents to display the contents of all these files. There we go. So we need display file contents. So we've got to get back over to the end, I believe, here, right? Yep. So this method will display the contents of the 0.text, evens.text, and odds.text files. All right, so def display file contents. We'll just call this file names. Should be okay. All right, for file name in file names, print. Let's put an F string in here. The contents of file name almost finished. With, then we got to open that file and read permission with open file name, read, as F, which is what we've been using, print f.read. That should be everything. Now, I'm not saying this is going to run. I've rewritten it kind of as we're going along here, but if you look, Well, that isn't everything. Of course, what we have to do is on the very bottom, we have to call main. Right now, if we run it, nothing at all is going to happen. So if underscore underscore name underscore underscore equal double quote underscore underscore main underscore underscore, and we'll call main. Okay, so let's play computer here. We're going to call main. So what are we doing? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these files if they exist. So I'm going to call remove existing file and pass it each one of these. I actually should be able to write it like this. Like we wrote the display file in here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually write it like this. All right. So I'm sure that those messages are going to print. So the first time through, it should say this file does not exist, this file does not exist, this file does not exist, and this file does not exist. Then we come in and try to generate 25 random numbers and stuff them into the file, that file up there, randomnumbers.txt. Stuff those numbers into there. Then we call process numbers and we pass in that file, and then we update our counters. Finally, when we get all done, we display the file contents of each file. Now, when we remove it here, and again, I took this from online. I did not have this in mind, but it's always when you write programs, when you're dealing with files, you should always check for the existence or non-existence of something. So if the file exists, remove it and say the file has been removed. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. You cannot delete it as it does not exist. All right. Then this is just going to generate, it should return 25 random numbers, that's count, between 0, which is L bound, and 100, which is U bound, lower bound and upper bound. All right. Then we should save that right there, this file, generate random numbers. It's just random numbers. We're going to save that to a file called randomnumbers.txt. Open it up and write everything in. Okay. All right. Then we're going to do the processing. So we've got these counters. Now one thing I should do in here is again say global 0 count, evens count, odds count. All right. So let's see once. Okay, we're calling process numbers in here. I just want to make sure that, because there's a chance these are all going to be 0, which of course we wouldn't want. All right, so we open up each file. We open up the file, open the file random numbers.txt with the 25 random numbers in read mode. Then we open the other files in write mode. Then we will iterate through the 25 numbers in the file random numbers.txt. If the number is 0, print the message and update the appropriate counter. If the number is even, instead of appropriate counter, let's do the 0 count counter. So if it's even, we'll do the evens count counter. Finally, if it's odd, print the message and update the odds count counter. All right, which is again what we're doing in here. Finally display everything. Now again, this may not work. If it doesn't, I'll stop the thing here and we'll go through everything, you know, to fix it. All right, so this is random01.py. All right, so when you look, let's see. Here are the numbers. We did get a 0, kind of cool. All right. Oh, it's saying that that's odd. And it's saying that that's even. So this is backwards. So let's first fix that. Okay. All right. If the number is 0. Otherwise, if the number modulo 2, that should be equals 0. Not just the number modulo 2. That's just checking for a true or false. So let's save that. Let's come back in here. Let's run this again. Let's take a look at what we've got. All right, the file has been removed. The file has been removed. It's been removed. It's been removed. I need another thing there. So 60 is even, etc. We did not. We got 1 0 there. Good deal. All right, so it's telling me line 170 in main and line 66 in main, it does not like. Cannot unpack, non-iterable, non-object. I think I know what that is, but that's okay. So 170 and 66. I do want to make sure after this, when we say this file has been removed, we put a blank line in there. It's no biggie. It's just cleaning stuff up. So what you should notice in here now is if we look in here, we do have 0 text, evens text, and odds text. So here's what we have in evens. And when you look, it is figuring them out correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12. Total evens 12. That's correct. The odds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The odds have got 12. And 0 has got 1 0 in it. So all that worked. All right. The only thing that did not work, okay, so let me do a file, save all here. Let me go back here again. Clear. Oops. Clear. Come on. CLEAR. There you go. And if we run this again, you're again going to see those messages that those files have been removed. I'm going to close these now. All right. And I'm still getting that error. That's okay. We're going to fix that in just a moment. We don't have any zeros in this one. All right. So if I bring in my evens, it says we had 12 evens. And again, they're all even. If I bring in the odds, they had 13 odds. And if I bring in the 0, no zeros were generated. So everything is working. The only thing I have to do is come in here. And let me remove this, and this, and this. And I have to fix those errors. It's really not that big of a thing. All right, I'm going to do that and then come back and wrap this particular program up. And then in the next iteration, again, we're going to rewrite this as an object-oriented program using classes. So let me do a file, save in here, and let me just stop. I'll be back shortly.